Hi, I'm Terry Arnold with the IBC Network Foundation. Welcome to Talk IBC. And I'm so happy to have Ashley Kinni with me today. She lives up in New Jersey and she is one of our IBC sisters. And she wants to tell you about her story, unfortunately, of being diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer, but also share some education and some hope. Thank you, Ashley, for being here today.
Thank you, Terry, for having me. I'm so excited to discuss my journey. And yeah, I can't wait to chat.
It's a weird thing to think you'd be happy to talk about this, but you're in a good place right now. And I know you said your focus is you really want women to know about this unusual cancer and also that you can get cancer when you're pregnant. Now, I know you told me you're a speech pathologist. Of course, I bumbled that since it's the word speech. And that kind of puts you in a medical world, but that doesn't mean you know all things.
No,
So let's
no,
talk about your background and what happened and how we got here today.
sure. So I think it's important to say a little background before I go into my actual cancer journey. I was living in New York City with my husband for I think 5 years and working, both of us working, and then we decided we wanted to start trying to have a family. And during the pandemic, actually, I had two miscarriages, and it was really upsetting and obviously very difficult, especially during COVID, because I had to do some things that if it was today, I probably wouldn't have to do, but because the hospitals were overrun and in New York City was the epicenter of COVID, it was a very scary time. And
I want to
so
interrupt real quick and say I'm sorry you had some miscarriages because I've suffered that too, and it's awful. But also, I'm sure it was very difficult. There's a very loneliness about what happened to you. But so I'm glad that you got to finally have a baby. But continue on.
yeah, thank you. It was a weird time. We were like walking to all of my appointments, like a mile each way, because like we didn't want to take the subway because of COVID, and you didn't really take taxis at the time. So it was a weird time, especially living in New York City. So after the miscarriages, I really like focused on getting really healthy. I ran my first half marathon. I really stopped drinking and I was really focused on getting pregnant. That was like my main focus. And my doctor, my OB at the time was like, I'm going to give you one more shot and then we're going to go down like some fertility routes. And so we tried. I was in the best shape of my life. And so healthy and I got pregnant and it stuck and we were so excited and so happy and I was very cautious because I had two miscarriages. So I was very aware of like what I was putting in my body and exercising and so everything was going great. And then when I was 8 months pregnant, I noticed that I developed the orange peel on my left breast and my nipple started to become inverted and my breast was just really hot. It was like
Did it swell much? Was it bigger in size than the other breast?
yes, it was huge. It was huge. It was really large
Isn't
and
that crazy how fast that can happen? It's
yeah,
like an attack.
it was. It was. And I was really confused as a first-time mom and I showed friends, family and everyone was just like, "Well, you're 8 months pregnant, you're about to give birth, it's probably breast milk related, your milk's coming in." So I didn't think much of it. And at around the same time, I actually developed hypertension. And it was like my body was freaking out, like there was something wrong in hindsight, and they couldn't figure out why. I developed hypertension at 8 months pregnant. Usually you develop it earlier on. So it was really strange. They did all these tests, but they never checked my breast. And I had one breast exam my entire pregnancy, which I think is something that for anyone that's going through pregnancy, really to push for breast exams throughout the pregnancy.
I want to interrupt you with that about one thing
Yeah,
because, I grew up in a world where you always go to your OBGYN for anything female related, they called it. And no disrespect to OBGYNs, but I honestly believe that they're all about downstairs. They don't do a lot about upstairs. And there needs to be more education about breast health. And also, there needs to be education that cancer doesn't care if you're pregnant. This should be this beautiful, happy little time in your life where you're in this little bubble and nothing goes wrong,
yeah.
but it doesn't care.
It does not care. And I was in a bubble. I was so happy and I was, I was like, there's nothing wrong. And so I developed hypertension and I was finally induced at 38 weeks. And the birth went well. Everything was great. Best day of my life. Gave birth to my son, very healthy. We're in heaven. And the next day, I was in my room, recovery room with my husband, and one of the nurses came in, and I really wanted to breastfeed. I like watched all these tutorials and videos, and before the baby came, I really, really wanted to breastfeed. That was like a big goal of mine. And my son, for some reason, like would not take from my left side, my affected side at the time, and it was just weird that he like knew that it wasn't a good breast to go for. And the nurse, this was literally the day after I gave birth, was like, how long have you had that rash for? And I told her like 2 months, and she was like, okay. And I could tell she was alarmed, and she immediately got the doctor. I think it's also important to note like that nurse probably saved my life. Um,
To say, and I find that nurses are often the ones who pull the trigger on, hey, something's up here, because they see so much.
yeah. I mean, again, no one was checking my breasts, so that nurse saw and got my doctor. And I remember even joking to her with her about like, oh, well, it can't be cancer, right? And I don't know why I said it, but I did because I think I saw the look on her face and she looked scared. She looked scared, and
Yeah.
so I then got a emergency mammogram and sonogram the next day. And I also like went into panic because my son developed jaundice on the second day. And I thought that was like the end of the world, which it's not. It's very common. But all of my
New
focus,
mom, and your
yeah,
emotions
new
are all over
mom.
the map, and they're
Yeah.
making you jump through all these extra hoops.
Yeah. And so like my focus was purely on him and him being in the NICU under the light. And so I wasn't even really taking this whole whatever this was about a mammogram, like I wasn't taking it seriously. And then the next day they kept me in the hospital, and the next day I went for the mammogram, and I was devastated because with the mammogram like all of the milk came out and it was just dripping down. I remember just crying. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's wasted milk. Like what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Like this is stupid. Why? I'm fine. and and it was devastating. It was devastating. I'll never forget that. And then they do the sonogram, and the radiologist came in and she was like, look, it's either mastitis or which is an infection, or it's cancer. And I was like, well, it has to be an infection. And she was like, well, we've got to do a biopsy. Like, you want to do it next week, tomorrow? I was like, well, let's do it right now. And God bless her, she did it. She did it like right then and there. And she she did several biopsies, and I later found out after the biopsies she walked out. My husband was waiting for me. Our son was in the NICU. My husband was waiting, and she looked at him and she goes, it's cancer. Like, she knew. She didn't even have to do the pathology report. She knew. And he didn't tell me at the time, which it was a lot for him to carry as a first time dad. And his wife has cancer. And that was, it was devastating. It was devastating. And then I found out 6 days officially after I gave birth that I was it was malignant. And
You say malignant, so it was stage 4 from the
Stage
beginning?
three, stage three, I'm sorry.
Okay. So you say malignant, you meant it was malignant with cancer. Okay, I
Yes,
thought you said
yeah.
metastatic. Okay.
Oh,
So you said
no, no,
malignant.
okay, yeah,
So
yeah,
it was cancer, but
yeah,
you were still stage 3?
yes, yeah, stage
That's a
three being,
lucky thing
I know, I know, I know.
because the difference of a stage 3 and stage 4 can be really tough. They try to go for curative before, but still, so often we find that with the younger ones, um, are diagnosed at stage 4 for various reasons. And also, young women are doing what young women do, they're having babies. And sometimes the pregnancy, just like with you, masked what was happening, causing further delay. And also, there's a huge hormone dump
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
in
so,
pregnancy.
yeah, so I was diagnosed with triple positive, so my hormones
Okay.
were out of control, and HER2 positive. So yeah, and they told me, they confirmed it with a punch biopsy that it was inflammatory. And they told me that they thought it was pregnancy induced. And so I learned what inflammatory breast cancer was for the first time, and that you can get pregnant, or you can get cancer while you're pregnant, all like within a week. I was like, this is
A
crazy.
lot.
This is crazy. I didn't even know that this was a thing. Like, all of my family and friends were in disbelief. Like, we were all devastated. The beginning is the scariest part, as you know, like the unknown, and
Hmm.
I went for the scans and I lit up because I had just given birth a week before. And so, like, my pelvic area was, inflamed. So we had to do all this imaging, and then same with my liver, um, which they ended up being like hemog hemangiomas, the benign, they're like benign little tumors, hemangiomas, I think that's what they're called. But they're like benign tumors from pregnancy and birth control. But they were like monitoring me for that. So like it was a very scary, because I could have been stage 4 very easily. So that was really a scary time. And then I also switched hospitals too, which that to get a second opinion, which that was like a whole thing in itself. I don't know if you had to do that, but like
It
moving,
was a fight.
yeah, the records and the imaging and all of that. So that was a whole
Well,
thing.
one thing it was hard for me, and I think about you young ones, sometimes, you haven't had much experience with doctors, or you've never had to like advocate for something. I had an experience with one of my children was very ill when he was only 18 months old. So I had to kind of learn to navigate the system. But when I was going through my own, I was misdiagnosed. I was the opposite of you. I was misdiagnosed for 4 months. So it wasn't quick, but also I was blown off. And then when I got my diagnosis, I thought, this is great. At least somebody knows what I have. But I told her I wanted to go to MD Anderson because she told me that I lived in Houston at the time, major center near NASA. And I told her, well, I want to go there to talk to them because she just told me that she wasn't going to try to save me. She said it's too far gone. And I'm like, wait, this doesn't make sense. To go from nothing to we're not even going to try to save you just seemed pretty brutal. And I really thought, because by 4 months, I felt awful. I thought, yeah, I'm probably going to die. And I wanted to see if I could be part of a study or to help or do anything. And she got mad at me and she told me, if you go there, don't ever come back. And I thought, well, crap, now what do I do? You're the first person who knew what I had. And you're telling me if I go to the most renowned cancer center in the world,
Mm-hmm.
I can't come back. And I left, not with my knees knocking. I was so mad
Yeah.
that I thought, well, you don't have my best intention at
Mm-mm.
heart.
That's so
And
scary.
I've seen people get great local care, and I've seen people not get the best care sometimes at big centers. So, what
Yeah.
was it like for you once you got to a major center? Did they know what you had?
Yeah, yeah. So I was still at a major center. I was New York Presbyterian, Columbia. That's where I gave
Uh-huh.
birth, and that's where they diagnosed me. But I ended up at Memorial Sloan Kettering because it's Memorial Sloan Kettering. It's a
Sloan
cancer
Kettering. I
hospital.
know,
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah. So, and like, my OB was like Ashley, like you should go to Sloan because they specialize, like they specialize in cancer and they're familiar with rare forms of breast cancer. So I made the switch. It was strange because I felt guilty leaving my team at New York Presbyterian. But I'm happy I did make the switch. But it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work switching hospitals. And then I met with my new oncologist, and yeah, she has a lot of experience with inflammatory. So I felt very comfortable and very, you know, um, I was happy with, how they were treating me.
I
And
want to say something about that
Mhm.
because when you said you felt guilty, it's interesting. I talked to a lot of women who say they find it very hard to switch doctors. They're really worried about offending someone. And also, if you've had this good experience with, them birthing your babies and all these wonderful things, sometimes it makes it feel disloyal.
Yeah,
But I always tell women, if you ever get your kitchen remodeled, you're not going to hire the first contractor.
yeah,
You're going to get 3 or 4 bids. And I always say,
yeah.
kind of think about that way. I think women have a hard time putting themselves at the head of the line. I heard a little bit of that when my baby's got jaundice. I'm focused on that. I understand. As a new mom, I would be doing the same thing. It's hard though to not feel guilty when you're just trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And getting to a specialty center is good for not only you, but it also helps them understand the science better, get more samples for their studies, get more people in their clinical trials. I mean, those things are all really important. And I'm laughing. Listen, you have a daughter who lives in New York. She had her
Mhm.
babies at the same hospital and
Oh,
she's
yeah.
being monitored. She's BRCA positive and she's never had cancer and I hope she never will. But it turns out, even though I have no family history, um, I'm BRCA positive. And out of my 5 children, I have 3 daughters, and I know boys can carry the gene too, but one of my 3 daughters is BRCA positive.
Wow.
And so she's being monitored at, I think it's at Sloan Kettering. I need to double check, but she
Yeah.
goes every 6 months. So I know all the paths I know all the paths you're talking about where you are.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I feel honestly very lucky that I was given the opportunity to go to these great hospitals because I know there's a lot of women that don't have access to hospitals like, Sloan Kettering or MD Anderson, and or have to travel, a lot.
Mhm.
And it was basically in my backyard, so I was very fortunate. Um
When did you start treatment? How soon after? And what was your protocol?
Yeah, so I started on January January 18th of 2022. So that was a month after I gave birth to my son. So I was like, in the thick of it, trying to figure out how to be a mom. you know, and I had like 4 weeks before I started chemo, so I was breastfeeding using one breast. And I was pumping like crazy because I really, really wanted to breastfeed. And I think that's something that I'll forever grieve is I didn't have that opportunity to like breastfeed for, ample amount of time. I'm happy I got like 4 weeks, but I wish, I had longer. But yeah, and
Ask real
then
quick, because
mhm.
this was your first baby. Did they talk to you about harvesting eggs or any of those things?
Yeah, so they told me no.
That's not too personal to ask, by
Oh,
the
no,
way.
no, 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 no. And that's something I'm definitely still grieving. So New York Presbyterian said I could. Sloan was like, we don't recommend it, because you just had
Right.
a baby, you're hormone positive, you have inflammatory breast cancer, like you could be stage 4. Like that's how quickly, the cancer
And
can
you have to
spread.
wait longer for that process. And so I'm glad you said that because
Yeah,
I've known women who were told by their local doctors, let's harvest some eggs. And I have great sympathy to women who have not been able to have children. I'm very fortunate I had 5, but sometimes people don't realize it wasn't as easy as it sounds. And I've
no,
miscarried too.
yeah,
And and then um, but to delay for that purpose can be incredibly dangerous
yeah, yeah.
and incredibly dangerous. And so I'm glad you got some good advice. And again, I am sorry for that portion
Thank
of your life. I'm grateful for what you've got. And I know
yeah.
it used to be if someone had a cancer history young, they wouldn't let you adopt. And I have several friends who have. And also, it's interestingly enough, I have friends who've gotten pregnant accidentally post treatment,
Oh wow.
naturally.
Wow.
So you
Yeah.
don't know what you don't what's
No,
going to happen yet.
no, no. But my oncologist was very honest with me, and she's like, "You have a son, and you need to be here, and you want to be here for him. So let's do what we need to do to get rid of,
Right.
the cancer first." And I she didn't really give me a choice, but I know I made the right decision. It was a very hard, like, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it right now. Like, I really wish I could have, but who knows what could have happened, because it takes a couple weeks,
Right.
and there was a chance too that, like, it wasn't going to work either. Like, I had just had a baby, like, and I had a hard time getting pregnant, like, so yeah, we didn't do
There's
that.
a lot of factors, but so when you started treatment, the
Mhm.
baby was a month old.
Yeah.
And so what happened? You started chemo first?
Yeah, I did chemo first. I did AC, 4 rounds of that. I lost my hair. That was really tough. I didn't cold cap. You know, it's expensive, and you have to be there 30 minutes before chemo, 90 minutes after chemo, and that was time away from my son. So I was like, I'll just, lose it. And I did, and that was tough. But I did fairly well, actually. I did fairly well with AC. And then I did Taxol. I did 12 rounds of Taxol with HP, Herceptin and Perjeta. So I did 16 rounds. And honestly, I felt Taxol was more challenging because it was every week and it was emotionally draining, with AC, it was like every other week and I had a little break, but Taxol, it was just emotionally exhausting. And then I lost my eyebrows and my eyelashes, and I didn't really know that was going to happen. And that's when I looked really sick, and that was scary. That was
It
really,
was weird for me that I realized I got really puffy. I gained a lot of weight in treatment and they gave me tons of steroids back. They do things differently now. I'm not saying it's not brutal now, but back in my day, you had a PET scan every time you walked into the building. They gave you tons of steroids, and all that stuff really wreaks havoc on your body. But also, I had cancer both my breast. I had two separate primaries. It was just nuts. And IBC ironically saved my life. We wouldn't have known about the cancer in the other breast in time. I had a triple negative tumor. My other breast had been growing and wasn't showing up any mammograms. It was deep in my body. And I asked them when they found it, what would have happened if I hadn't gone through all these exams for inflammatory? They said, you'd have woke up coughing one day and it had been in your lungs because it was moving fast. It was deep
oh,
and it
wow.
just wasn't showing up. So I have an odd story that way. But like for me, the fatigue just, I had AC and Taxol too. And each week I was just a little more tired and a
Yeah,
little more green and a little more puffy.
it compounds for sure.
It
Like,
just was compounded. And
yeah,
so, and I'm a high energy person. I was napping every minute I could. So here you are with a brand new baby.
yeah, yeah,
And that
yeah.
baby doesn't care either. It wants what it
No,
wants.
no, no, yeah. And we were very fortunate. We had a lot of family help. My parents are retired, so they were able to help a lot. And then my mother-in-law came up a lot. So we were like really lucky to have such great support. And then a lot of my friends came up, and my friends in the city went to chemo with me. Like, my husband's job was so great and gave him time off every
Good.
Tuesday to go with me. So, like, that was great, but it was really difficult with a newborn, and I was trying to be present, but sometimes, like, I needed to go lay down. Like, I was really, really tired. And I just was kind of like in a daze, it was, yeah, a while.
Felt like you ever seen that Charlie Brown commercial or cartoon? And it's like womp womp. There were
Yeah.
times I could all I heard was womp womp, and it was interesting looking back that people didn't know that I wasn't understanding what was being said to me. because they said I reacted like I knew what was going on. And looking back, I'm like, what happened this day? Or and my husband go, don't you remember? I go, no, all I heard was like noise in my head. I don't. And I have memory gaps. There's about 3 months that is I remember Thanksgiving Day. I don't remember anything until after Valentine's. So I don't. I asked my
Wow.
husband later. I said, "Did we just skip Christmas?" He goes, "No, you don't remember." Like,
Wow.
no, I have one tiny memory of something, but So, were you surprised how much your breast changed, or did your breast change a lot in treatment?
It changed a lot. I had a really good response. I didn't have a PCR, but I did have a really good response. Yeah, like my nipple came back and the most of the orange peel went away. It wasn't inflamed. So I had a really good response. Now I did something that is a little different. I finished chemo and I got accepted into a clinical trial through Sloan Kettering. And
Is
so,
this with Audrey?
yes,
Audrey Teos? Yeah, I know her.
yeah. Okay, so I was their first patient to complete the study, the NARCH, the radiation before surgery. So,
Um,
yes. So, I
You're
know.
smiling, and the people are listening on Spotify or whatever might not know. And this is something, I'll be honest, it stresses me out. But I also know there's reasons that we do these trials and stuff.
Yeah.
So hopefully I never stressed you out by going, you did what? But I
And
know Audrey. She
yeah,
used to be at MD Anderson, and she's a Sloan Kettering, and we have agreed to disagree about certain things, but also too, I think it's fascinating. So
yeah.
tell everybody what you did.
Okay, so I mean, the standard care for IBC patients is chemo, surgery, radiation, and then eventually reconstructive surgery, right, Terry? Okay. So I did chemo and then I got selected to be a part of this trial through Sloan. And basically, the trial looked at what would happen if someone does radiation, completes radiation before surgery, and then at time of surgery, you do the mastectomy, you do, removal of the lymph nodes, and then you do the reconstructive surgery all at once, which typically IBC patients have to wait, is it 6 months to a year for reconstructive?
Actually, they're just now saying a year.
Okay.
Um, it used to be 2 years. Now they're saying a year. And lately it's come into conversation, maybe 6 months.
Okay.
But it's interesting. I'll get back to what you're saying. So,
Yeah.
just so people know, the standard of care for IBC is usually chemotherapy, a full radical mastectomy, which means you remove all the skin, you remove all the lymph nodes, not just a few. There's no sentinel node biopsy because IBC is a little sneaky. Sentinel node looks at targeted areas and sees what's affected in the area. But IBC sometimes can skip, for lack of a better way of saying it, can skip over a few inches, and you got this little hot node somewhere. So you want to grab that little sucker and get it out of there. So you do what they call a full nodal sweep, and then you do radiation. It's about the size of a sheet of paper. And then if someone has reconstruction, they get what they call a deep. They take it from the tummy and build, or from the back and build, no implants, and they remove all that damaged skin. So you went straight into radiation?
I went and yep, I did 25 rounds. And I had the bolus. I did that and I did pretty well with that, like physically and mentally. It was a little emotional, I think, because it kind of, I think reality starts to like sit in. I think in the beginning you're like fight or flight, with the chemo, and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then like radiation, it's tedious. It's, every day for 5 weeks, Monday through Friday. And it was very emotional, I think. Reality started to
They
really sit in.
prepare us well for that. We have a sense of what chemo's like.
Uh-huh. Yes,
And we see movies or whatever, or our friends want to go with you, but nobody says, "Hey, can I go to radiation with you?" They
exactly.
they want to go sit with you in chemo and have lunch with you and buy you some pink ribbon or something. But nobody's and also too, nobody talks about radiation. It's very lonely because you have to go in this room by yourself.
Have
And
me too.
also
Yeah.
there's a fatigue with radiation that I found to be significant. And maybe it's because I wasn't mentally prepared, but also you're looking at your body get worse again. Because,
Yeah.
with your, that's why I asked you, does your breast look better? Your affected breast starts to look better. That gives you hope. Radiation, you've got this flat, hopefully not too icky looking scar. I know mine weren't bad, but all of a sudden that skin is getting burnt, and it's messes with your head.
Yeah, and your armpit. Yeah, I mean that was the worst part. It was right under here because every time I would move my arm and I had radiation during the summertime, so it was just so hot and it was
So hot.
yeah. So, but I got through it. I actually biked every day to radiation to and from in the city.
Show
So,
off.
yeah, I highly recommend to anyone that can do it. I know like not a lot of people can, but I was living in the Upper West and I would bike to the Upper East where the radiation building for Sloan is at. And it just really, I had the earliest appointment every day. It was like 7:30 and I would just like focus on biking, and like not getting hit by a car instead of like, you know, perseverating on the fact that I was going to radiation. It kind of was like a distraction for me. And it also got me active again to like move my body.
Also, too, they're saying now, if you up your protein significantly, and it's like bodybuilder up protein, not just, eat a second piece of chicken. And the nutritionists are telling people about this now. And I know it's hard when you're tired, but they say if you can find a way to exercise, it does help with the fatigue. So you got through the radiation. So
Yes.
then when they did the mastectomy with
Yes.
instant reconstruction, did they
Yeah.
do a deep or from the back?
Deep. Yeah, I did the deep. Yeah, because I had tissue. I just had a baby and I gained weight from chemo. So I had tissue. So yeah, and then they took 16 lymph nodes and they did a deep flap. So it was an 11-hour surgery.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, I
How did you
got
find that recovery? Because I did not. I have a good pain tolerance. I'm not a slow healer. But the deep flap for me, because they had to make two breasts, it's literally just a time thing. You can't will yourself past it. You just literally have to wait,
yeah,
chill. And I'm not good at chilling. How did you find that recovery?
it was rough. It was really rough because you're healing from your chest and your abdominal region. You have to wear that binder for like 3 weeks. And then like the drains, oh, the drains. I hated the drains. Oh my gosh. I had like 6 of them and
I
oh,
hate
God
drains.
bless.
How long did you have them? Do you remember?
I didn't have them in that long. I actually healed really quickly and nicely, thank God. I think because I was 32, 33. No, I was 33 when I had surgery, but I had three in for a week, and then I had the other three in for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. So it wasn't terrible.
Bad. Well, that's good. But it's still though, it's a time thing.
Hmm.
You just literally have to, because you can't stand up straight for the first week because
No,
your body it won't let you. You'll tear
no,
things. But also too, you don't want the flap to be rejected by your body.
that was scary.
'Cause
Yeah.
flap rejection's a real dirty little secret, and
Yes.
women don't like to talk about it. And then you've got a wound, so you really have to. Like my doctor told me, he goes, you're going to have to hold 3 months where you don't do anything but chill. And I'm like, I made my surgery. He got mad at me. He called me. I moved my surgery 3 times because I was having a hard time finding a window and also wasn't sure about doing it. I was flat for 10 years, so I was ready to do this, but I was kind of scared to mess things up. And he said, if you move your surgery one more time, I won't do it. But honestly, it was hard to find 3 whole months that there wasn't something. And I needed every minute of those 3 months.
Yeah. I mean, it is
I drained forever.
it's a really intense surgery for sure. I mean, it was brutal. Like I slept in a recliner for like 2 weeks. And I couldn't hold my son. I think that was the hardest part. I
It's tough.
I
Yeah.
couldn't hold him for a couple weeks. And
Well, if
that
it's not,
that was
I can see not holding your baby be hard. And that was something with me. I have a lot of grandchildren, and they were like, you can't pick up your grandchildren. And I'm like, looking at what my kids needed and when they needed mom time. And so If it's not too personal, how do you feel about your body now with this reconstruction? Some women
Yeah.
don't like it. Some women love it.
Yeah, I mean, my plastic surgeon did a phenomenal job. I will give her Dr. Caridi at Sloan Kettering. I will give her a lot of props because she did an amazing job. You know, it's it's different. It's different. I think now I'm finally like it'll be 3 years since surgery in September. I think I'm finally accepting my new body, which is crazy because it's been so long. But I was able to keep my right side, so that's great. But like my left side, like I don't have the nipple on that side, and that's upsetting, right? And but like
Do you
the
have what they call a Barbie boob?
Yes, yes. But I have a nipple tattoo that was done at Sloan and it looks really good. Honestly, they did a really great job. So I'm thankful for like all of like the medical advances and technology because it does look nice, but I mean everything looks really good and like my scar has really like healed well and like you can barely see it. I used a lot of
Hmm.
those silicone strips, so like my scar line is very minimal. And my flap looks really great. I did have a reoccurrence scare last year in my flap, so they had to do a biopsy. So now I kind of have this little area that doesn't look so great. So I'm a little upset about that because before it looked awesome. But I think I'm gonna get some laser work done by one of the doctors at Sloan. So I mean, there's always like different solutions. And I also did the
It's weird too. It's weird too because the reason I asked you how you feel your body, I know someone say nobody told me they'd be numb. I mean, you could stick a pin in the middle of my breast, I wouldn't know you're touching me. Or they say, like, you have a natural breast, I don't have any. So they say it's weird that one breast is warm and one breast is cold,
yeah,
or they don't have symmetry. I have pretty good symmetry because I built both, but or they just say it's not my real body. But and there's all kinds of ways women. I did not mind being flat chested so much because I was so grateful to be alive, and everything happened at me so hard and fast. I would have done a kitchen table mastectomy to not
yeah,
have cancer in my body.
yeah,
But I can also see why women would want reconstruction. But also, I had significant lymphedema. That's why I had drained so long. They said I drained lymphatic fluid. It
wow,
wasn't necessarily because of the surgery. It was that fluid that couldn't get out of me. My arm was huge. I'm not kidding. It was significant. And so part of my reconstruction plan was to get nodal transfer that helped me. And it did, but I will always have issues with my arm, but it's not as big as my leg now. And I'm not kidding when I say that. It was big.
wow.
But like with you, it's interesting. Audrey and I have had a few meetings, and it was probably about you. I just didn't know your name. When she was telling me what she was going to be doing, I'm like, dude, you're killing me here. This is so scary. But also, it's very interesting because I'm seeing, just like when I was a young woman, women got mastectomies first and they got chemotherapy later.
Sure.
Then they learned if they shrinked the breast, they could do a mastectomy that was more effective. So I always was admiring of those trailblazers who were willing to be in a trial, and take that risk for the future, because sometimes it wasn't just about them, it's for the future.
Yeah.
And so there is a growing conversation that it makes sense to do chemotherapy, radiation, remove all that damaged skin, and do this. But again, it's a little scary.
It is. It is. It
No,
is. Yeah. They
but
did.
I'm glad that you understood what you were doing, because one of the things that's hard for me, and then I'll shut up, is
Yeah.
I get really stressed out when women don't know. And I want you to have this beautiful buffet of options in front of you and understand every choice you're picking up. And so then when you do it, you're doing it with full of knowledge. And like I've known women who doctor said, "Oh, this is what we're going to do," and then they don't do the right thing, and they didn't tell them this isn't the standard of care. Sometimes it's because they didn't know, or sometimes they make kind of rude assumptions about what you would want,
Mm-hmm.
or what makes them feel good. Because I had one doctor tell me, well, she's going to die anyway. At least I can let her die pretty. And I'm like, I want to
Oh,
stab you in the face
oh
right now.
no, that is so
Because
wrong.
it's like, well, so my big deal is because I know some people would say, well, I wasn't pro Reconstruction. It's not that. You are going to live with that decision in a way that nobody else is going to live with it.
Yeah.
So it's super important to me that you know what's going on.
Yes.
That's my that's my end
Yeah.
game. I want
Yeah.
you to know what's going on.
And I did a lot of research. So there was another study, the Prada study in the UK, that was very similar to the NART study at Memorial Sloan Kettering, and it was positive results. And so like I did a lot of research on that study and I talked to my doctors about it. And to me, you know, I did all the things that standard care, that protocol does. I just did it in a different order, so it's not for everyone, and that's why I smiled, because I knew that I would get some pushback. But for me, listen, I was, a new mom. I didn't want to have multiple surgeries. I just wanted one surgery and I wanted to like move on, and not completely move on, right, from cancer, because it's never going to be gone. But I wanted to just get through the really hard stuff, and I wanted to do this, and I felt like it things were aligning. I was asked to do it. I was the first patient. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this not only for myself but also for future
And
women.
that's the thing, because and that's the deal. And like I said, when sometimes back in my day, which was 17 years ago, I knew a lot of women who did not get the standard care because it was still being developed, and it's still being developed actually even today. And the doctors sometimes would give them same day reconstruction with um, skin sparing surgeries and implants and things like that, and they didn't do well, or they had failed reconstruction, which is a big shame factor. And so a lot of times I used to run these big support groups around the world, and the women who had failed reconstruction would often say, "I'm too embarrassed to say that my body's so messed up and I live with a wound. Will you be my voice?" And so I would be that voice. And sometimes people took it that I was trying to be a negative Nancy about Reconstruction. I got a lot of heat when I got Reconstruction 10 years later because people go, "You betrayed us. You were one of the flat and fabulous." I called myself a double wide flatty. I was fine with it. But also, it'd been long enough that I was feeling less betrayed by my body. And also, the lymphedema really was pushing some decisions. But it was interesting. I got a lot of pushback from people saying you betrayed us. I said, no, I'm not trying to betray you. There's new science. It's been 17 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like I said, my big thing is I always want people to just be informed and
100%.
then do what you do
Yeah.
because and also, it's a custom shoe. Audrey Teos might not have offered this to somebody else.
No.
She
No.
offered it to you because
Yes.
it's a custom shoe. If we
Oh,
both wear a size 8 shoe and they're custom,
yes.
they won't fit each other.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is a very particular niche population that they're looking for. Like, not everyone can just go do this surgery. Like, it is primarily for IBC patients. I have a friend that also did the surgery because she's an IBC survivor. And, I also too, I think, have a lot of faith in my doctors. I think that they are some of the best in my opinion, and I have a lot of faith in them, and they said go for it, and I was like, okay, this is what's best for me and my family. And not everyone is going to see it that way, but that's just what I chose.
See progress. I mean, like I remember when women would get the mastectomies first, and they were brutal. They didn't like you can't see if you're on pretend they draw an eye shape around your breast and
Hmm.
remove the breast and then they stitch that closed. That's what they used to do. They basically just whack it off flat, and there was this
Yeah.
big wound is bigger than my hand where the imprint of your breast would be, and they cauterized it, they burned it,
Oh,
and that's what women had. and
yeah.
um and it was awful. And I've seen women who had that done. So then later, when you see, oh, we can do the chemotherapy and then we can do these things and it improves, hopefully these things will keep improving,
Right.
And so I don't want to be in the way of progress, like I said, but I just think it's important that people know. So I'm glad you're here to share the story. And I'm
Yeah,
glad you're here,
I
period.
am. 3 years. It'll be 3 years NED in September. So, yeah.
It's interesting to say 3 years NED because you said you didn't have a complete pathological response,
Nope.
which honestly, most women with IBC don't.
Yeah.
And that is a real head trip, but most don't. And they can still be okay. That's why you have three ports of the surgery. I mean,
Right.
treatment, you've got, chemo, surgery, radiation, whichever order you do it. Each one of those brings a function.
Yes, yes. And then I did um 14 rounds of TDM1. And I switched from Herceptin and Perjeta to TDM1. So I also did that because I didn't have a complete response. So I did 30 rounds of chemo, right? So
And that's practically a magical drug. I
it
mean,
is.
it's been an amazing
It
breakthrough.
is. Yeah, they call it like Godzilla, like because it's
Yes,
Kadcyla. Like
that's
it
the
will.
nickname.
Yeah, it will kill anything in its way. And so, but I wasn't prepared mentally for the Kadcyla. I thought like I knew I was gonna be on like post-treatment drugs, but I didn't realize that that was gonna come into play. So that was really alarming, and I was definitely devastated that I was gonna have to do another 14 rounds of chemo, but it wasn't too bad, because it's an immunotherapy and it has a little bit of chemo, but I did that as well. So I feel like they just threw everything and they still are. So um I was also put on an estradiol. I started Lupron as soon as I got diagnosed, and then I also when they did surgery, I had HER2 positive and HER2 negative cells um, and in my tumor. And so they also put me on Verzenio, which I end next month.
Well, they did throw the book at you.
Yeah. So I'm
Well, it's kind of weird when you say you're not mentally prepared because also too, when your hair starts coming back or you've done what people think of the big thing, they kind of act like this is all over and you're back to normal, but a, it's not the same normal and it's not over.
no.
And I know, and you kind of said something, I'm gonna sum it up. When you get the surgery, you kind of want to be one and done.
Hmm.
We don't get to be one and done.
No.
There's going to be other things. And I think we need to talk to people about that so we can be better supporters of our friends who are going through stuff. I know there was one point you really wanted to drive home, and I want to wrap this up soon, is that you can get cancer when you're pregnant.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how do you say that big enough to the young ladies who might go, oh, this present's a little weird?
Yeah, I think that, in general, I think younger women should realize that it doesn't matter like your age, your health status, your race, anything that cancer, it really can happen to anyone. And especially for women that are pregnant, your body, the hormones, like my hormones went crazy and your body can change, and I think it's really important to do monthly breast exams. And I think it's really important, especially when going through pregnancy, that you are aware of your body and the changes, and anything that feels off, like you should talk to your doctor, and encourage your doctor to do monthly or every other month breast exams when you go in, because like I said, my doctor did one breast exam and that was in the beginning of my pregnancy, and I'm not sure if much would have changed, but I think it's important that you have these conversations with your doctor,
Well,
because
I know the signs and symptoms can be vague, but some women have just intense itching or the nipple inverts, but the rash, the peel to rash usually doesn't show up right away. I almost wish that wasn't the thing that's talked about on the internet a lot because usually that's not until the second month. It's not in the beginning. Sometimes there's that redness, heat, rash. But
Mhm.
the best way I can think of to tell anyone is a sudden change to one breast warrants doctor exams because if you've just had a baby or you're nursing or you change your birth control or you've gained or lost weight, your breast, we always have one that's a little bit bigger than the other, typically on your dominant side. But the thing is, though, a sudden change to one breast is not change in birth control, not weight
Right.
loss, not milk coming in, not that is to me the short. But we need women to hear it from you because you've been there.
Yeah, yeah. My affected side was very like much larger than my right side. So I think yeah, any type of changes, you should talk to your doctor. I think it's also important to like knowing your genetic risk, right? Especially as
Mhm.
you get older, having conversations with your doctors about that as well. If there's like family history, of breast cancer or ovarian. I think that is super important. Yeah, and just knowing your body and knowing that you can speak up and talk to your doctor, if you feel like something is off.
That's a perfect way to end it right now, to know your body and don't be afraid to speak up. And I'm really glad that you shared your story. And I hope you weren't too nervous thinking I was going to give you a hard time because, like I said, my big deal is I just want you to know I'm grateful for the development and I'm curious to see what's going to be the future. It's going to be some slow changes, but hopefully there'll be advancements. And personally, I would love to see there not be any IVC forever, but it's going to take a while. And that's why I started the charity to fund research. And because I meet a lot of women like you, and I want everyone to be happy and healthy and raise their children and have a good life.
Yeah, me too. Me too. That's, at the end of the day, I think cancer changes you for sure. And, I view things very different now. I'm a different person, to be honest. And I think it's, you really look at like the little things and value the little things that maybe you wouldn't before cancer.
I could see whether it be a different appreciation. Well, I appreciate you being here today. Your story is going to save lives because there's going to be somebody who's going to hear this and say, "Oh, my friend said one was different," or "I didn't know this could happen," or and get someone to the doctor faster to hopefully rule it out. But if they can confirm it, there won't be those delays, and we can make the world better and for this. So thank you for chatting with us today. And I
Thank
hope
you
to get
so
to talk
much.
to you again. And I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward to seeing you, a very old lady.
Me too.
Okay.
Me too. Me
Okay.
too. Thank
Well,
you
I
so
am an
much.
old lady, so you have to catch up. Okay. Take care.
No, you're not. Thank you.
Okay.